X-Men. Get it!
Hey everyone, and welcome to another exciting episode of Battle of the Atom. This is your weekly X-Men podcast where we rank every story from A to Z.
I'm Adam.
And I'm Zach. And Adam, I want to ask you. You're an academic administrator. So, as an academic administrator, I want to know, what are your feelings about the Massachusetts Academy's curriculum plan versus the Xavier Institute?
Well, it's interesting because on ground level...
Is it interesting?
Well, I mean, you could argue, first of all, that the Xavier School is not really doing much in academia anyway. Like, it does seem to be sort of a mansion where every child homeschools themselves and worries about whether they're going to have their term papers in on time all the time. Massachusetts Academy seems like a much more balanced campus for those students who are not part of the Hellions and are completely unaware that there is a complex underneath their campus that is devoted to sort of danger room training these kids to join the Hellfire Club. So I guess it depends on which kind of student you are. Are you going to be like abused by Emma Frost, or are you just like taking classes and everything's chipper and fine?
Folks, we're talking about the Hellions today.
That's right. Yeah, I noticed you were wearing head to toe fuchsia with an asymmetrical neckline.
You know what? When the spirit moves you, you go with God. And in this case, I really felt like this was the appropriate attire.
It suits you well. It brings out the fuchsia in your eyes. So
thank you. I was really going for it. I was nervous. I've got a little bit of a gut, not a huge gut, but enough that when it gets too form-fitting, I can't hide it under sweaters. So it becomes harder that way. But I'm really glad that it's working here.
So who requested this? Because we're going to start with the Hellions' first appearance here, right?
We are. This was requested by Patreon supporter Brian Fleetwood. Brian went over to patreon.com/comicsxf and said, folks, I like what you're doing. I feel your vibes and I respect them. And I would like you to talk about New Mutants 16 and 17, or 15 through 17, the first appearance of the Hellions.
Yeah, and this is a follow-up to, I believe, Uncanny 178, 179. Kitty has kind of followed Doug over to the Massachusetts Academy, only to be abducted by Emma Frost.
Yeah, Doug Ramsey, who at this point isn't a mutant, or doesn't,
right.
Or we know he's a mutant. Professor X knows he's a mutant, but he's like, actually, Doug's not going to be hated and feared by anyone. He's just going to be oddly good at everything. And maybe we don't ruin his life.
Right.
Which shows an astonishing amount of self-awareness for Charles Xavier's School for Gifted Youngsters.
Right. We're not going to make him an X-Man because we don't want him to die.
It's just that Charles knows that some things are going to happen and they're going to end up on a weird island and Doug's going to get shot.
Yeah.
He's like, no, Doug can just know Mandarin. It's fine. It's not a big deal. But all that is prelude to the point of Kitty gets captured by Emma Frost.
Yeah, and their dynamic right off the bat is fantastic. They're just like at each other's throats, and
it's one thing that I really like about the Joss Whedon astonishing X-Men, especially that opening. There is something to be said about Kitty Pryde and Emma fighting in that, and given Joss Whedon's history of being a misogynist, isn't great. It is, in the case of these characters, incredibly in line with the fact that Kitty Pryde woke up one day and saw this evil woman capture all of these people that were nice to her and bring her ice cream.
Yeah.
And
then
never really got over that.
no, why would you, right? And like, I love that this dynamic has finally evolved into what it is today.
It's charming.
It's
now.
great. But I love their banter back and forth. Kitty matches Emma's wits every single time, as Emma tries to say, hey, you should train with me. You could be a great member of the Hellfire Club. Now, before we get to the Hellions, we do have this first issue where some of this back and forth is happening because Ileana is starting to sort of grasp what her powers are. And the New Mutants are also starting to get a handle on what she's all about too. And it's scaring the hell out of them.
Yeah, it's a great look into Ileana's room as she is doing a meditation. And she's got her sigils.
Her giant Garfield.
She's got her giant Garfield that Sal Buscema draws really well with Tom Mandrake on inks and Glynis Wayne on colors. Hey, Chris Claremont wrote this one. It's a New Mutants from 1984. You knew this. We knew this. We all knew.
Yep.
We all knew Papa Chris did this one. Man, we should have asked Papa Chris about Garfield.
Well, that's okay. There's also a Magnum PI poster on the wall, so we're really sticking to New Mutants themes here.
Yeah, so they get the New Mutants vibe, and Magic decides to astral project as she is want to do, and she finds, oh no, Kitty's in trouble. We have to go rescue her. The rest of the New Mutants have some odd feelings about this.
Yeah, definitely. Especially wanting to follow Ileana into any sort of battle because they're scared out of their minds that there's demons appearing in doorways, and Ileana is looks like she's vomiting up ectoplasm. This is some weird stuff for these kids to see.
It's very weird, and especially for Rain. Wolfsbane understandably has a lot of religious trauma, and is that's a demon.
Yeah.
This isn't prejudice. That's a demon over there.
Right.
She was in hell, and she made demons appear. And also, I don't like that. And then it also makes me feel bad about the fact that I'm a werewolf, and we keep not talking about how I'm a werewolf, but I'm a werewolf. And there is a beautiful scene where Sam Guthrie goes and comforts her, and it's a bit dated and all this stuff, but it's the stuff that early New Mutants did well that would pay dividends in the future. Artistically, this book isn't there yet because Sal Buscema is not bad by any means. But if I was going to describe 70s and 80s house style, it would be Sal and John. Yeah.
Yeah. It is very interesting looking at these pages, knowing that the very next arc is going to be Sienkiewicz on Demon Bear, and just knowing what's to come, and seeing this style is kind of crazy.
Well, because there's a Demon Bear a stinger at the end of this issue,
right?
And it's comical, yeah. Knowing what comes on the first page of the next issue.
Right. He's kind of like a fluffy cloud.
To see. Yeah, it's a little smoke bear. It looks like one of the Charmin bears.
Yeah.
Made of Charmin.
He has a little rhyming poem too. It's kind of cute. So anyway, they get into the Massachusetts Academy. Emma Frost is immediately like, I got you, suckers. I'm going to take all of you. You're all going to end up on my team. And, at a certain point here, the New Mutants get jumped by their counterparts, the Hellions, in a Danger Room-esque scenario.
Now, Adam, we've talked a bit about the Hellions. How do you feel about the OG Hellions?
I think that it's a pretty old strategy to just give your heroes their evil twins. But I think this is done in an interesting way. Some of these characters obviously have a little bit more, let's say, depth than others. You know what I mean? Warpath from the get is already sort of a fully formed character.
Well, especially because he's not Warpath at the time. He is Thunderbird.
Right.
He's very specifically taking his brother's old mantle and using it against the X-Men.
Yeah. Cat's Eye is pretty interesting. That some of these characters don't have a lot more to them. They're just sort of like, hey, this kid is like an android named Jetstream who, like, is he a mutant or does he just have a rocket stuck to his back?
Yeah,
I don't know.
They haven't figured out Jetstream's whole deal yet, and they never will.
Yeah.
They will never. Jetstream is what if we had a cable or a cannonball.
Yeah.
But like they have counterparts for everybody.
Yeah. The most interesting of them is definitely Empath, who
from the start.
Exactly. Like busts into the scene and is already just like twisting minds and turning hearts, and it's awesome. You can tell this character pisses off everybody.
He walks into a room and says, I'm an empath, so I'm feeling that everyone's upset.
Yeah, so the battle is very evenly matched, though the New Mutants do get their butts handed to them the first time. And we turn around, and in the final issue, the two have a sort of like duel. It starts with Jetstream and Cannonball versus each other to say, hey, we're either going to stay and be part of this or we're out of here with Kitty. And luckily the New Mutants prevail.
Yeah, it's kind of a nothing ending. Like, the story wants to introduce the Hellions, and that's cool, and give this dark mirror to the New Mutants. I get it. But then it doesn't do anything with it.
Well, it's doing a couple of things. It's following up a little bit more on the exploration of Illyana's powers. Danny ends up in limbo. They meet Sim. So we're getting, a little bit of a world building there. But you're right. Like, this is an introduction to this other team that, like a Saturday morning cartoon, you might expect them to pop up every once in a while and be like the misfits to the Gem and the Holograms. And yet, as we were talking about before the show, the Hellions actually don't appear that many times during the entire New Mutants run, and then they die. When Wilson Jim kill them off. So it's like, these guys are fun for a little bit, but they don't serve the purpose all the time.
They keep Empath and Thunderbird around because those are the two that they actually took any time to give any significant characteristics.
Yeah, which is kind of a shame because, like, some of these characters and their powers are pretty interesting. Cat's Eye is introduced as sort of being like a cat who doesn't like turning into a person, as opposed to, Wolfsbane being the other way around, or, we have Taro.
Well, that's just mean.
Yeah. So, some of them are just pretty two-dimensional in terms of their villainy, but they're fun counterparts, and I do have a fondness for these, like, absolutely simultaneously stylish and very ugly uniforms that they wear.
It's so weird going back to these because so much has changed about Emma. I mean, Emma's the weird part about this, right?
Well,
because she's like a 60s Magneto villain in these.
Yes. She is chewing the scenery. And
like, Sebastian Shaw is a more like three-dimensional and well-developed character than Emma Frost, who is just wicked in this.
I don't know if I agree that it's like less rounded, but I really do have a fondness for this. The back and forth between Kitty and White Queen, as I mentioned before, but just the fact that, like, as you mentioned, she feels almost like a Disney villain, cackling, and there's a sort of Silver Age quality to that. But I enjoy it. I enjoy that the character has had a chance to evolve from this form. It is weird, obviously, like, knowing who she is now. But I still get a kick out of this. I think there's a guilty pleasure in it.
Well, we have a guilty pleasure of our own, Adam.
That's right.
And that's ranking the stories of all the X-Men. On our list, on our road to 600.
Almost there.
We are at 594 stories on our big old list.
Wow.
From best to worst. The best X-Men story on our list is the House of X Powers of 10, Number 100 on our list is The Further Adventures of Cyclops and Phoenix. Number 200 on our list is X-Men 75, Anatomy of a Monster. Number 300 on our list is New Mutants, Truth or Death. Number 400 on our list is X Factor 145 to 149 about Xavier's Underground Enforcers. Number 500 on our list is X-Men number 3, Beware of the Blob. And the Draco's at the bottom. It's the Draco.
Now, I'm interested to see what you think about this, because I agree it's kind of a light story, but I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it quite a bit. I feel like this is like classic New Mutants in a nutshell, pre-Sienkiewicz. So,
I mean, with the double asterisk of classic New Mutants pre-Sienkiewicz, it's probably the best of those. But I also don't think New Mutants is good until issue 18.
That also definitely a factor here. I would say, story-wise, let's look at 400 here. That is X Factor 145 to 149. You think this is in the 300s, or is this a 400 story?
This is 400s, because New Mutants 47 through 50 is where they chase Magus and they go through all the different dimensions, and one of them has evil Bobby DaCosta.
Oh yeah, where's that?
That's at 381.
Okay. And
this is worse.
Yeah,
than that.
And I think as well, I don't know. What do you think about this in versus like the end of New Mutants 98 to 100? That's at 423.
I think they are very close.
Yeah, they're close
in quality.
You know, I think this is better than something like let's see. I think we're in the right category here. How do you? What about like the first appearance of the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants at 413?
At 413, yeah, we're in the right spot there. The spot where there is something of value in these stories. And if someone told me they loved these stories that are in this area, I could understand given a caveat of like, yeah, but you don't think they're like the best, right? Like you love them. You do think some of them are kind of bad?
Yeah. Like we're on par with something like Gambit's first appearance at 406.
We are.
Right?
We are. I would put it above the first appearance of the Brotherhood, but under 412, which is right above that, which is X-Men 65 through 69, Operation Zero Tolerance.
That is a perfect place for it. I like that quite a bit. So that would make this our
right.
new 413.
It does. It's the first Hellions arc of New Mutants.
Yeah. So the Hellions, as we mentioned, don't have a tremendous number of appearances, but one of the places that they also factor is in a very interesting and unique miniseries that I guess people might be checking out given the X-Men vote. And this
is over. The X-Men vote
has
for
ended.
Us recording ends tomorrow.
Right.
Which is fine. Who'd you vote for?
I voted for Armor. Who did you vote for?
Okay. I voted for Bling.
Great choice.
Here's where it went down to.
Yeah.
I think Monet's gonna win.
I do too.
In a landslide.
Yep.
When the votes first came out, like when I first saw the ballots, I said, "Oh, Monet's got this." But it's so much more even, and it is so hard to get like it even playing field with something like this.
Yeah.
But I think Monet has it in the bag.
Depends. We'll have to see. I think it's a really weird like group of characters.
I love that it's a weird group of characters.
Yeah.
I personally think Monet would be an interesting choice. I don't think Bling is my personal favorite. Bling is not the one I think has the most story potential.
Mm-hmm.
I think if you get someone like Gorgon or Micromax or Firestar, those all have a huge amount of story potential that hasn't been explored. Really, like I don't know what you do with Siren. Even I like Siren. I don't know what you do with Siren. I think Surge and Armor and Gentle, like they're going to be the kid on the team. Mm-hmm. And to some extent, Bling will too, but I don't know. it's interesting.
Well, here's a follow-up. If you missed...
But my son wanted Bling. That's why. My son said, I want Bling to win.
Yeah, my daughter said
I like that
Bling
one.
too.
I like her. And I said, okay, for the children.
A quick follow-up. In our newsletter, Dan Grote asked us who our write-in candidate would be. I chose Litterbug. Who is yours?
I legitimately forgot who I chose.
Oh, really? Oh, I'm trying to remember.
I have no... Here, I'm going to pull it up, and we can edit around this, but I do not remember.
Oh, I remember. You don't have to look it up. You chose Rubbermaid.
I did choose Rubbermaid because I want the one good fan account in the internet to be happy.
Yeah. Oh, man, that's
Let's
funny.
talk Rubbermaid is the only good thing to come out of any of that.
All right, so back to Firestar. When did this come out? This is originally from...
1986.
Yeah, 1986. And...
Well, 86 cover date. The first issue came out in December of 85. It's Tom DeFalco, Mary Wilshire, and Steve Leialoha.
Yeah. And Firestar, I think historically we know her from the Spider-Man.
Bum, 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 bum. It's Spider-Man and his amazing friends.
That's a pretty good Stan Lee. That's good.
My son actually doesn't watch Spider-Man and his amazing friends. He was really into it for a minute. Mm-hmm. But my youngest, what he watches is Spidey and his amazing friends.
Great.
Which is Spidey and his amazing friends is PJ Masks, but Disney wanted a second PJ Masks.
Yeah.
It's what it is. It can be charming. It is fun to see my kid run around and be like, Miles is the best. Thwip.
He's got it.
And his brother's like, this is stupid and for babies. I'm like, dude, you love Spider-Man also. Stop. Like, come on. Come off it. You're 6.
They're doing a good job of giving multi-levels of Spider-Man interaction. You know what I mean? It's you can age up with the character. But yeah, Firestar, was not an X-Men character previous to, what is it? Uncanny 193?
193, which is her introduction into the Marvel Comics.
Right.
But she was introduced in Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends as a mutant.
Yes. And we did have some X-Men cameos in that too, right?
There are 2 episodes with the X-Men, one of them about Firestar's origin, and then one of them where they go to the X-Mansion for like a cookout or something. It's weird. Wolverine has his Australian accent.
Love it. That's great.
I think Thunderbird's in it, but he turns into a bear.
Oh, no. Oh, that's...
Oh, no. Bud, here's the thing. It's not good.
No. Now, this miniseries, though, I enjoyed this. It's I think we talked about this before we started. This kind of has like a romance comic feel to it, thanks to Mary's artistic style.
Yeah, let's start with the good that we can both wholeheartedly agree with. I think Mary Wilshire is doing a fantastic job on this.
Yeah,
with Steve Leialoha. Like, if they're going for a soapy comic with a lot of like big emotions and high school feelings, I think Mary Wilshire's knocking it out of the park.
Yeah.
Great work on the art here. Good artistic storytelling, great emotive characters with nice designs. It works really well.
I'm waiting for the what doesn't work well for you.
That's pretty straightforward, and the answer's Tom DeFalco.
Okay.
Adam, do you think Tom DeFalco is a good writer?
I think Tom is maybe the wrong choice for writing the adventures of a teenage girl.
See, because I'm not a big, like, I've not read all of 80s and 90s Amazing Spider-Man. Mm-hmm. So maybe Tom DeFalco's good there. But I've read enough Tom DeFalco comics to be like, do I want to read more Tom DeFalco comics?
I think
the jury's out on that one from me personally.
Yeah, I think the my take on it would be that there's a certain harmlessness to what he does. Like he's going to maintain a status quo and not really like shake the boat too much. It is an interesting miniseries in that it's it's mostly about Emma Frost for 4 issues, like psychically and physically abusing a child to like become an assassin.
Emma Frost is in this.
Yeah.
Emma Frost is the pinnacle of gaslight, gatekeep, girl bossing.
Oh, definitely.
In every very literal way with Firestar.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's so good. Like, here's the thing. People are gonna bring up what is the funniest thing that Emma Frost does, which is gaslight Firestar into thinking she blew up her own pony.
Okay, wait. Let's talk about this for a second. Did she?
We're talking about Butterrum? Yes.
Did Butterrum die?
Yes, absolutely. Emma killed a horse.
Okay.
Not even a question in my mind.
Because I've heard
the answer.
Theory that it was like a psychic trick and that like she convinced her that Butterrum, you know, like died and Butterrum didn't actually die or whatever. And I'm like, that horse is dead.
That's it. That's an Emma Frost apologist trying to hide the fact that Emma Frost has done women's wrongs as well as women's rights.
Yeah. What's the word for horse killing? Equicide? I don't know.
Emma Frost does a small equicide in here.
I'm gonna have to look that up.
And then convinces a teenage girl that actually it was her microwaves that did it, which is objectively a really funny trick.
Yeah.
That's a fun prank to pull on your friends who have a horse. Emma Frost is just really giving it to this horse girl. She also then pulls this exact same trick, but with a weird human. Mm-hmm. And no one talks about that.
Yeah. Yeah.
No one talks about how Emma Frost also got this dude super murdered. Mm-hmm. It's just the horse.
Well, you know, the guy's name is like what, Clark or something? It's not Butterrum, so it's a little less memorable.
Butterrum is an objectively funny horse name.
Like
that's so good.
And Clark is kind of like a block of wood, you know, like
you're thinking of Randall Chase. His name's Randall.
Thank you, Randall.
Randall Chase is this weird dude. He's Angelica's bodyguard.
He's an adult.
He's very sweet. And it is funny and weird to me that they're like, oh no, we've got to make sure that Firestar's not actually the hero of this. She's mostly helpless while this one random Hellfire goon does the heroic stuff for most of the book.
That is very, very strange. She's kept
well,
out
it's
of...
not strange, it's sexism, but it was the 80s.
But for a 4-issue mini, for the arc to really be not an origin story that turns her into a hero, but a origin story that sends her back home to live with her dad is weird, right?
It's so weird. Because what are you trying to do with this story? Obviously, you're like, hey, Spider-Man and his amazing friends is very popular for a children's Saturday morning cartoon. So you're trying to go with the fact that you've got Iceman in this random character that you added because the idea of Iceman, the Human Torch, and Spider-Man hanging around and just being bros in their underwear in their place was a little too homoerotic for the... for the 80s. Not that show did not... That show had plenty of homoeroticism beyond that. Also, I think the rights to the Human Torch were tied up in something. But, like, she's just the girl Human Torch in that show.
Well, and there's no reason that she couldn't just go off on adventures, you know? What I like about this is the like, White Queen... it's the same thing I liked about that New Mutants arc. I like that she's sort of a silly villain, and you know,
Emma's incredibly silly in this one.
Yeah, but the most that Firestar does is kind of like blow up the underground complex and fly back to Dad. So it's kind of like, okay, you know, she doesn't really get to go on any quote unquote adventures or
she spends the whole time getting gaslit.
Yeah.
And then and now you go back home having learned nothing.
Well, that's the big question, right? Is, you know, like, it's more like her dad learned not to be afraid of her? Like, is that the big takeaway?
Okay, here's the thing. Her dad's not her dad uses bigoted language against mutants.
Yes.
He seems mostly to be afraid that his daughter's going to melt things based on the fact that his daughter has been melting a lot of things.
Yeah.
And I'm not excusing bigotry. I would also be afraid.
Oh, yeah. No,
it's if my daughter was melting things, maybe I'd be like, you're not, maybe don't use the word freak. But also, like, you don't want me to touch you, Daddy? It's like, no, you literally just melted a phone. That I'm afraid you're going to melt my arm, and I like my arm.
It's a legitimate concern.
It's just like, again, it's not, bigotry's bad. Raising a couple of points that I think we should consider.
Yeah.
You know, Firestar does nothing until, like, for 4 years, until Night Thrasher gets her for New Warriors.
That is the other really wild thing, is that they go and do this mini series, and then she's not, and she's also appeared in X-Men as, you know, being part of, like, the Hellions crew, and then disappears, and then ends up in New Warriors for the entire run. It's like, I just don't understand. It makes me really kind of understand the weird relationship that X-Men fans have with this character, because I feel like there's some real, like, it's not a love or hate relationship with this character. They're pretty much like, nah, this is not for us.
Adam, I have found out, and this is so unfortunate for me personally, that Firestar had an appearance in comics before Uncanny X-Men 193 that no
really?
one talks about.
What is it?
Spider-Man Firestar Iceman Danger in Denver, which was an advertising supplement to the Denver Post.
Oh, whoa. That
a 60-cent value.
That's a deep cut right there.
That's the Uncanny X-Men Go to the State Fair of Texas style book. And
but is it available? Can we get copies of it? That's the big question. Because I have my State Fair comic, you know. They made a lot of those.
Listen. I'm going to find a way to read this Denver Post comic book. One way. There's plenty of ways to read comics online if you need to.
Yeah.
But anyway, we're talking about Firestar. Is this a good book? I don't think it is, actually. I think it's so weird.
It's weird. I did enjoy reading it. Is it good? I think, like you said before, I think the art is really great. It fits the story. I think Tom DeFalco does actually capture White Queen's, you know, villainous spirit of the time. But in terms of a story, in terms of what, like, actually happens with Firestar, it's not super exciting, you know?
Yeah, I think that's my biggest problem with it, is that it's not good.
Yeah. So why don't we rank this? I think it's probably not as good as the Hellions story we just ranked.
I don't think it's as good as the Hellions story we just ranked. Do you think it's as good as the New Warrior story we have on this list, 435, which I know had some stuff with Firestar in it? And
yeah, Firestar did.
Yeah, she goes down to Brazil. Nova Roma.
They go to Nova Roma, which we'll talk about in a second. I think this is probably better.
We do. Ugh.
I think this is probably better than that.
It's not as good as Galactus or Dazzler Herald of Galactus.
No, and it's not as good as those Beast Amazing Adventure stories.
It's not. It's not as good as Wolverine Enemy of the State.
No. Nope. It's not as good as What If Professor X was Juggernaut. I think it's probably better than Wolverine and Jubilee at 434.
I was going to fight that on art because I like the Phil Noto art in Wolverine and Jubilee, even if he's not like Phil Noto yet. But also, Mary Wiltshire does a fantastic job. Like,
I think the art is great in this. And
yeah, I didn't love all of this comic. Art's fantastic. Like,
yeah.
It's not my particular style, but really doing a fantastic. Like, I get what they're going for, and I think they achieve exactly what they were going for with what Mary and Steve were doing. It's a real shame about all the words and the plots.
Yeah, it's an interesting one. All right, so that's or not so interesting. So that's 434, and we've
If
got
you feel
one...
like you don't know more about Firestar, that's fine because the book doesn't do much to actually give her a
No.
personality either.
No, we summed it up. We summed it up pretty well. So, one last Hellions appearance here for this episode, and that is the New Mutants issue number 62, written now by Louise Simonson and drawn and inked by John J. Muth.
Let's start with that again. John J. Muth is also doing a really good job.
Man, I really like the art in this this issue. He's using a very, almost a painterly stroke with his inks. You could tell he's using a brush, and it's really cool. Very high contrast shadows, and it's really beautiful in parts.
No, I think that is a big strength of these issues. Is it? I understand if you're going to look at the Hellions, Empath is one of the most well-rounded characters in the Hellions. Like he has dimensions to him. I do think it's a bizarre choice, and I know this is following up on like what Claremont was already doing. I do think it's a bizarre choice to try and make me empathize with Empath, and not in the way of like I see why he sucks so much, but being like maybe he doesn't suck. No, like what Zeb Wells learned on Hellions, and I think this was a brilliant stroke, is everyone hates Empath, and if you try and make people like Empath, it's not going to work. If you can give Empath, you can make me feel somewhat sympathetic for, oh, this is a sad thing for him. But I still am going to hate Empath. There's no way around hating him. He's the most punchable guy on the X-Men. And that, my friend, is a competitive category.
Yeah. So for folks who have not read this issue, Magma has joined the Hellions and the Massachusetts Academy after leaving the New Mutants, and has been summoned home to Nova Roma by her father. I guess White Queen does not want her to take this journey by herself, and assigns Empath to join her on this quest. It does not go well, and they end up in a plane crash, which then forces the two of them to rely on each other and survive in the Amazon wilderness to get back to Nova Roma. And like you said, Zach, the story kind of, Luis is asking us to kind of feel, I guess, some sympathy for Empath, or at least, I guess, try to accept that he can be slightly heroic because he helps out Magma.
The challenge with this is that by the fact that this is a Magma story, Empath is the character that you naturally want to like more because he's playing against Magma, who's just a charisma void.
Well, at this point, even after 62 issues, Magma is still very, very
just nothing.
There's nothing there. You know what I mean? And this issue is also pulling her back to, as we've talked about on this show before, Nova Roma is super unfortunate.
Nova Roma may be the worst X-Men concept. There's probably... Nova Roma may be the worst one that they can't stop doing.
Yeah. So this will set up all of that stuff that we talked about in New Warriors. Of course,
it will too.
Yeah, Phabe's very intelligently retaking control of Empath as a complete narcissistic bastard, who then sort of takes over all of Nova Roma in the meantime. But none of that happens in this story. This almost feels like a fill-in issue to a certain extent because it's just a one-off. We get a danger room sequence at the beginning with the Hellions attacking Magma, and then the majority of the issue is just these sort of panels of jungle survival with the two characters.
Yeah, I'm pretty confident that this was an inventory issue.
It feels that way. Definitely.
They had it just like sitting around, and they were like, let's frame it up and then we'll go. I mean, because like the next issue, also an inventory issue, one written by Claremont.
Yep.
And you get that through New Mutants, and you actually get that in the late 80s of Marvel, when they realized that they could schedule things better and not have inventory issues.
So yeah, I mean, by the end of this issue, like, I guess Magma is kind of falling for Empath and like deciding to kiss him after punching him in the face. Like, it's very strange the way this is framed.
Yeah, it's weird. They want you to fall in love with these two and have a romance and like believe that they can be a couple. And the problem is that it's Empath, a man who we have only ever seen convince women that they should love him.
Yeah.
With his mental powers. And that makes it very hard in the span of an issue to say, no, actually, she's falling for him for real.
Yeah.
You're sitting there like, but
Okay.
she's not, right? It's Empath. No one can love him. And that is tragic, but also
part of his character.
He's been, like, it is a tragic thing on a very basic level of he can never know if someone loves him or doesn't love him or if he's making them. Like, that is sad.
Yeah, but it's also really interesting.
It is interesting. He's also spent most of his character history hypnotizing women into loving him, so maybe part of the fault is on him. If he's confused about these things, he should have stopped actively doing it at some point. And I just think, as a note, if I'm Manuel de la Rocha's therapist, I'm telling him, let's unpack this for a second, Manuel.
No, you're telling him whatever he wants to hear, Zach.
Also a problem being Manuel de la Rocha's therapist.
Exactly.
Yes.
So the Muth art here is fantastic. It's got
work.
this nice, loose style to it throughout. And unfortunately, the issue just kind of ends. Like, the Nova Romans show up with Amara's dad, and it's like, I hope you'll be friends with my friend. And, like, that's it. There's nothing else. Nothing else happens.
Apparently the next time we see any of these characters is in Evolutionary War, a comic that I know I've read individual annuals of. I don't care about whatever.
Not super exciting.
The High Evolutionary was doing. I hate the High Evolutionary, bud. Hate him. I've got nothing for the High Evolutionary. I think he sucks.
He was kind of fun when Duggan brought him into X-Men recently. He just kind of stood there and looked, threatening.
See, I hate the High Evolutionary. I like that I like that Pepe Larraz got to draw a Tesla elephant. I think that was very, very funny.
Yeah,
I think that was great. I think it was hilarious that Jerry was like, we're bringing back the weird, terrible half-sister of Pietro and Wanda, right? Like, we're doing that. The one who's faster than Quicksilver and better at magic than the Scarlet Witch. Great. We're bringing her in here as well, so we have to all remember that story as a bit, as a goof on everybody. I think that's very funny, Jerry. Great work on that.
Excellent choice.
I don't care about Herbert or whatever the freaking High Evolutionary's name is.
So
I hate him so much.
I think this is worse than Firestar.
Probably.
But what would you think about it compared to the New Mutants Fall of the Mutants, 59 to 61 at 471?
Fall of the Mutants is also bad.
Yeah.
This is
more consequential, maybe.
This is
just light. Like, there's nothing wrong with it. It's just kind of...
Who do I like less? Bird Brain or Empath and Magma together?
Bird Brain, definitely.
I probably dislike Bird Brain more, yeah.
Yeah, come on.
Which one is... Spider-Man Team Up #1 is the one that we continue to forget about, where Ben Reilly fights, like, the Hellfire.
Yeah. Yep, yeah.
This isn't better than Search for Cyclops at 467. Another bad comic.
No. And it's not as good as Exiles 100, I think, at 468. Even though that's not a great comic either.
Do you remember? I know New Mutants Team Up Marvel Team Up Volume 3, number 19 is Cable teaming up with somebody, and Robert Kirkman wrote it. I have no recollection of that comic otherwise.
This is probably better than that.
Okay. I'll take your word for it. You know what, Kirkman, if you don't like it, sue us.
So this is going to be our new 469?
This will be our new number 469.
Nice.
New Mutants 62. And that's a hellacious episode of Battle of the Atom.
Very nice.
I wanna thank Brian Fleetwood for that. That was a lot of fun. So thank you, Brian. If you want to be like Brian, patreon.com/comicsxf. Go over there. We're actually gonna be shaking up the Patreon tiers and stuff soon.
Nice.
Because we need to desperately.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So we're gonna be doing that. So keep an eye out. We've got some exciting stuff on the horizon. Adam, what do you got going on right now?
I mean, you guys can always follow me on Twitter at Arthur Stacy. I've been doing progress shots of my illustration of the fake X-Men vote that Comics XF put out, the roster. So I'm hoping, I don't know, I don't think the whole piece will be done by the time this episode comes out, but if you like seeing art progress, you can check that out. And Zach,
I've been overjoyed seeing the art progress on it. It's been fun for me. I still think great. You don't have enough maggots on that page, though. I think you need to squeeze in a second maggot.
I don't know where he would fit. And as Jordan said, why put two? You're just splitting the vote. But it would be funny to have one peeking out of the corner.
I mean, listen, bud. You do as the spirit wills you. No, I've got nothing going on. Comics XF continues to put out some primo content.
Yeah.
So go check out that primo content. I'm not going to plug anything because I don't know. I am going to plug our next episode, which will take us to the road to 600 and allow us to talk about the war crimes of Hank McCoy.
Ooh.
But until then, this has been Battle of the Atom. I hope you survived the experience.
Get it!